A good conversation can shift the direction of change forever. Would you leave it to chance? Join the authors of Design to Change and explore this series of conversations with designers and event owners. Driven by the need and conversations with event owners and event designers who use the event canvas around the world, this series explores the depths of conversations to elevate your abilities to look and act beyond the now. Episodes are hosted by Ruud Janssen, Roel Friesen, Dennis Lehrer, and Paul Rukens, with illustrious changemakers, designers, and pioneers in the field of design and beyond. To explore these conversations and additional content, visit designtochange.online. For now, let's start the conversation. Conversations.
All right, welcome back. My name is Ruud Janssen. Here we are on the Design to Change podcast. And today I don't have one, not two, but I have three of the star players that people know or might know from previous editions of this podcast. With me today is the all-star team from IMEX, from Brighton, I think. You're all in the same place today, which is a miracle in itself because you travel and roam the globe all the time. With us, we have Sophie Pink, who's the digital and social media manager at IMEX. You've been there for a couple of years, but a lot of people have gotten to know you over the years that you've been there. Next up, we have Suzanne. Suzanne Medcalf Mulligan, she's the head of engagement. I think after 15 years with the IMEX group, if LinkedIn has it right? Mm-hmm. People have gotten to know you in different roles where you have done strategic communications, industry relations, and then now the head of engagement. And then the person that needs no introduction that everybody knows, I think, in the industry. And if you're not from the industry, this is somebody that I highly recommend you to get to know. Leading the all-star team is Carina Bauer, who's the CEO of the IMEX group. In the intro, we had the pleasure of hearing a question. And we have the tradition of opening up the conversation with the same question over and over again. And the answers keep changing. So I'm really curious what your answers are today. And you can take turns at it. I'm not going to direct the question, but it's the same question I'm going to ask all three of you. First of all, the question is, a good conversation can shift the direction of change forever. Would you leave it to chance?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Please explain.
I mean, for me, some of my best conversations come from just a chat, an opening line, a random meeting. Sophie's part of this team because of a random conversation we had. Some of my roles, you mentioned a few of the roles I've had here over the 15 years have come from randomly saying to Carina, hey, we need this. And she goes, okay, well, do you want to do it? So I think, I do think that kind of great conversation can be absolutely left to chance.
I think it's quite common in the events industry, isn't it? That you end up with, those chance conversations, going around a show floor, meeting new people, talking on a panel, and all those different things. It does definitely come to chance.
How about for you, Carina?
I think it's a mix, to be honest. I think there are many situations in which you have important conversations. It might have taken you a while to achieve the conversation. There might be specific outcomes that are needed, and I think for those conversations you need to actually plan them quite carefully and design them essentially. However, I think what the team have said is also true. You can't always rely on planned conversations. You need to be able to think on your feet, and we know that some of the best outcomes and moments, especially from events, are from those serendipitous connections and conversations that happen. So I guess I'm going to be very diplomatic and say both. Both are important. Yeah, and you have to have an open mind to both. Yeah. And maybe that's a part of it with the chance conversations. It's having that open mind.
Now, if I would have left this conversation to chance 4 months after this past event, right, 20 to 20, or the third week of May, I think we were together in Frankfurt. And although you always want to talk to a lot of people and you want to claim their time and kind of find a way to anchor a conversation, sometimes it just doesn't work out. And then you have to wait almost to the next one to get all of these favorite people into one place behind one microphone and one camera. to catch up, right? And thank you for your diligent, calendar planning and making sure that 5 months after the fact and 1 month before the next edition, we can actually, continue our conversations. And there's something to be said for having quality time and planning for it to take place at a time when there's not so much distraction, maybe, right? How different are the conversations for you, Carina, maybe to start off with? How different are the conversations you're having on site at IMEX when everything is happening at the same time versus when you have a moment like this where, you carve out an hour in your agenda and you know that this is the only thing that you're focused on for this upcoming hour? How different are those conversations for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, like any event organizer, if it's your own event, you have a level of distraction during your own event. And so I'm quite careful to plan conversations at IMEX that don't need that in-depth focus. And in-depth time, because at any point you might be called away or have to shorten a meeting. I think that's very different for me than for me and our staff, rather than for our participants who are able to carve out that time during the show for the conversations that they need to have. But for me personally, the more detailed or in-depth conversations I will save for somebody else's event or for a time like this rather than my own event. My own event is more for touching base with people and taking on, furthering a conversation and making sure that all the constituent parts and all the people that are there are achieving the objectives they came for. That's what we're focused on during the IMEX weeks. Rather than sort of in-depth conversations about other things.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And, just to give people an idea, if you're not familiar with IMEX or IMEX Americas, it is the largest trade show and probably most significant one on the planet when it comes to the meetings and events industry. During this 1 week, according to your website, the 2024 stats, right, for IMEX America say that 85,000 meetings are booked by 15,873 participants with 7,585 buyers from 82 countries. 82 press attendees from 8 countries and 3,500 exhibiting companies or organizations. Now, that's a whole lot of conversations bottled up in 1 week. And I know that Sophie and Suzanne, you are the masters of almost like curating and peeling apart the essence of some of these conversations or some of these encounters, some of these experiences that people have, which can be very overwhelming if you're there for the first time, right? Or even for the 22nd time, for that matter. It doesn't matter. And you allow people to see the things that they might not have seen on site. Now, how do you guys curate the things that you want to capture? How do you orchestrate it? And how do you do it with such energy and smiles that bring a smile in the mind to the people that are watching it on the other end too? How do you do that?
Well, it's a great timing, actually, because we had our meeting this morning with our team. So we do generally through the year, it's just Sophie and I who do the digital social media, and then we balloon to a team of 10 on site for IMEX America. And pretty much I would say the whole company ends up being kind of our handlers walking around. Carina's great at sending me pictures of things that are happening. She's like, you've got to get over and do this. But we're lucky now. I think we're a few years into what I like to do. It's not FOMO during the show. We like to showcase everything that you can have access to. We're a few years into doing it in the way that we now do. And I think that we're really lucky that people come to us and they say, hey, we're doing this activation. We'd love for you to stop by. And our job is to show our attendees all the incredible things that are happening on the show floor so they can better plan their days and their weeks to take advantage of them. I do think the exhibitors are showing up. I mean, some of the ideas that people come with to showcase their destinations and their properties are really mind-blowing now, and they're really building a community in some of the booths, so it's a joy for us. I think the only problem we have is now there is so much that happens on the show floor that it can actually be difficult to make sure that we get across it all.
Agreed.
So how do you prune that tree, Sophie, when you're looking at all these activations and you have to decide you can only film one thing at the same time or be at one place at the same time? How does
Yeah,
that work for you guys as a team?
I think as Suze was saying, we had a good planning meeting this morning. So, you know, Suzanne will take a couple of the video crew out and you know, focus on a morning of doing one area of the show floor, and then I might go and take photos of one other area of the show, and then that can go out on our Instagram, and it's just making sure we hit as many touch points as possible. But I think as well, people have got really good over the last few years at advocating for themselves at our show. And you know, I spend a lot of time doing that community building and managing and seeing what people are posting about. And that's really, yeah, stepped up a lot. And it's really lovely to see that. Then that helps us step up our game, doesn't it? And it's like constant elevation from both sides. And
And I
Mm.
think
it's really exciting to see.
there's more intention, I think, as well, that we've started to see with a lot of our exhibitors. Obviously, wellness is such an important aspect of your show experience, and we're seeing a lot of intention with different booths. We've got Circadian Cove this year, where they're going to be kind of focusing the activations throughout the day based on where you would be in your circadian rhythm, and which is just an amazing way to kind of schedule out your day. So I think we do a lot of listening to what attendees want, and then we make sure we show those pieces.
That's pretty amazing. We just got back from Melbourne, so my circadian rhythm is still slightly, let's say, shuffled, although we were only gone for a week back and forth to Singapore and Melbourne. And the last episode of the Design to Change podcast, we reflected on something that actually originated at IMEX Frankfurt 3 years ago. For the listeners that are curious to see or hear that, live in Melbourne, we, together with Wee Min Ong and Geneviève Lim of Marina Bay Sands, sat down and reflected on that moment 3 years ago when they first bumped into what we do at IMEX in Frankfurt. And since then, our relationship has evolved to where we are crisscrossing the globe and trained over 100 of their team members and road showing event design to different places on the planet as an extension of the way that Marina Bay Sands looks at the future of events. And so relationships that sprout from one magical serendipitous touch point in Frankfurt, over time, you know, develop from a little seed to a big tree with low-hanging fruit and all sorts of fruit that's happening in the future in a very good way. And I wanted to just take a moment and recognize the fact that I'm sure many of the people that have been part of the IMEX experience have these similar stories to tell, right? And these are powerful stories because relationship building and partnerships, you know, we had dinner last Thursday together and we reflected on that after we recorded the podcast. And the moments you have around the table, wherever they might be around the planet, where you have the time to talk, or you carve out a larger moment of time because you want to dedicate it to the relationship you're building with that counterpart, right, with your partner, sometimes goes way beyond the trade show itself. Are you guys inspired enough by the stories like this, which I'm sure happen all over the place, because I think your team deserves that credit for creating the petri dish for these things to start? Do you guys hear enough of these stories, or can't you ever get enough of them?
I think we hear a lot of the stories, but we definitely don't hear all of the stories. It's impossible, but it's always really rewarding to hear that, because when you create an event like IMEX, you know, we are curating it and designing it and creating it in order for exactly that to happen. For that business to be done, and for those connections and relationships that are going to be really fruitful for those people for many years to happen. So that's, you know, all our energy for the year is put into that. So yeah, absolutely, it's rewarding, and we'd love a way to be able to capture more of that, but it's very difficult to do. You know, there are so many stories, from pure business stories through to people meeting and then getting married. So, you know, we've had the whole spectrum, and I think that's what creates the community at the end of the day, and the connection back to IMEX, because over years it has been very meaningful in helping people to truly develop their businesses, their relationships, you know, their careers. And And to have that sort of touch point back each year is really important to people, I think.
Yeah.
I think people often refer to it as a summer camp or as coming back to a family reunion. And I think it's really important that as a business, there's almost no greater compliment to us that people feel that our trade show is a place where they really belong. And that is just such an incredible kind of concept, I think, to think that, it's a business events trade show, right? We're bringing people together to do business, but actually it's so much more than that happens every year. And I think, it's a real kind of compliment that that's what we are, and that's what we're able to kind of give to our attendees and to ourselves. For us, it's about coming back to see family and friends. And you asked about the conversations that we have on the show floor, and a lot of those are both like real friendly pieces of connecting back with people who've become family to us.
Yeah. Now, as a head of engagement, I don't know if your KPI is the amount of people you actually engage, but Suzanne, from your perspective, the relationships.
Have you met me?
So the KPIs you guys set for yourselves, right? It's always interesting because obviously, organizations are spending significant amounts of money when they, decide to go to another part of the planet for a good week and spend time promoting their organizations or representing their organizations. That investment needs to be tied back to a business result, right? Like Carina, you were saying that at the end of the day, the reason a trade show organization exists is because of the trade factor, right? The other elements are the surrounding shells that are super critical for where you spend your time, but the business factor is a very important one. How, we can't leave this conversation away, I think, how in a world where the serendipitous connections between organizations might be orchestrated in different ways in the future, right? Every day I get 20 emails from organizations that say they can find a more suitable, connected people that are looking for event design, consulting and services and training, with laser precision, pinpointing. Do you think that is going to play a big role in the role of trade shows in the future, or is that like just a digital dream bubble that will be burst soon?
I think it's a different product. It's a different sell. People, go to events and trade shows in order to do business in person, in order to not just do the transactional side of the business, but build a relationship and build trust, which in our industry is particularly important. And in many other industries is very important as well. They go to a trade show to build community, to connect with their peers. That doesn't preclude them needing to, with laser precision, find contacts to speak to at other times of the year. But will they build a relationship because somebody has reached out on their behalf to 1,000 people on LinkedIn? Maybe, but probably they'll reach out to that person on LinkedIn, those people on LinkedIn, get one response in 1,000, and maybe then meet that person in person at a trade show or an industry event in order to develop the relationship. And that's the reality. So I think there's a place for both, but it's important to understand what you are doing with both and what you're getting with both. And trade shows and general, business events don't exist in isolation of the rest of your marketing and sales plan. If you treat them in that way, they'll never be as effective. Our exhibitors and indeed our buyers who get the most out of our shows are those that see it in a cycle of touch points and a cycle of marketing and sales activities that they are doing throughout the year to have a different type of touch point with their clients. And that's where they can be successful, but they understand what they are trying to achieve at our show versus online outreach through an email or a LinkedIn campaign.
Yeah. Now the role of, and maybe I can ask that question to you, Sophie, the role of social media has changed dramatically over time, right? At least for us as an organization. I remember, dabbling first in Twitter and LinkedIn becoming a thing and, Facebook disappearing for some generations, right?
Some generation, I was just going to
Other
say.
things making its entry, and who knows what's next. How do you guys deal with, maybe also you, Suzanne, with, the 15-year window on this, which kind of encompasses the early rise of social media all the way through to where we are now in 2025. Today is the 16th of September, 3 weeks shy, I think, of the next edition in Las Vegas. How do you guys see that evolution, and how have you coped and adjusted with that?
I think it's really exciting, the evolution of it. And again, going back to what our attendees are doing and our exhibitors, they're really amplifying themselves on social media platforms. And, again, that helps us. And, our strategy will always change and evolve as the trends and market changes. I think as long as, we stick to our, JOMO, as Suze was saying, like our joy factor. That's a huge important part for us, and educating our community. And I don't think we do definitely stick to a certain strategy, but I think a lot of it comes from market and what's happening in the industry as well.
I think we've been really lucky. I often give Carina a lot of credit with our social media, because Carina trusted that social media was coming and gave, Miguel Neves, who did the role before me, a huge amount of sort of trust and autonomy in saying, actually, there is a community here. Let's build it authentically. And so when I came in and took over the role, I was able to sort of say, actually, this is where there's a strong community and it's growing, and let's try things and let's be ourselves and let's be authentic. And we've, been able to showcase both the business side of what we do very, very well, our exhibitors and the trade show, but also who we are, and the culture at IMEX is so important and it's real. I'm an elder millennial who got Facebook in university, and I've been sold to on social media for many, many years, and I don't want to be sold to on social media. And I think that the best social media, whether it's for a business or person who wants to become an influencer or whatever that is about being yourself and being really authentic and finding that community. And we internally talk about our social media community as a real community. Not everybody comes to the show, but they're part of sort of our world. And you were talking about the engagement piece earlier. The fact of the matter is that you can have 1 million followers, but if they're not engaging with your content, it's an absolutely useless number. And so for us, our number one focus is always seeing what's really resonating with our community and giving them as much of that as we can.
And being flexible to adapt it, right? So if something doesn't necessarily work or the angle wasn't quite right, it's about taking it and looking at it and then going again and finding a different way to do it. And I think that's really exciting. That is what you can do with social media. You can really trial and error. And when you get it right, it's amazing. And when you get it wrong, okay, it's a little bit, but it always works itself out.
I think the other thing is, over time, not just us, but everybody has learned what the different platforms mean and how to interact on them differently, and what's relevant to your brand and your audience. So I think that's important as well, because you don't need to be on every platform, and you don't need to be on every platform in the same way and equally. And so I think that's really important, to just really find where your community is engaging and then to meet them there, rather than try to spread across everything.
Yeah. So to get really pragmatic on engagement for a minute, because data doesn't lie, right, when it comes to digital. I'm just looking, IMEX Group, 16,700 followers on your Instagram channel. LinkedIn, IMEX has 56,000 followers. Maybe I'm not looking at all the right channels yet, but which one is growing? Which one is shrinking? Which ones do people that don't know what you know about social media, what should they be aware of? And what are some of the things that you're seeing shifting over this past year or last 2 years?
I think that LinkedIn has been an amazing example of a channel that started out as absolutely not a place to quote unquote sell and has become one of the biggest platforms for it. However, I do think there's been such a push towards an AI written LinkedIn social media plan that people are very quickly seeing through. I think that while it's becoming almost not long form content, but kind of that longer pieces or the borderline, clickbaity types of things on LinkedIn. I think that there is still this incredible space where people are really answering and building communities. There are some great people on LinkedIn right now where they do one post and there's 300 comments because people want to share their ideas on a business level, but there's also this great connection from the personal side. So I think LinkedIn has had great growth. I think Instagram is still a place where people are, especially during events. I think that Instagram traffic for us just goes crazy the month of the show. It's pretty unbelievable. Whereas LinkedIn sort of, I would say, stays the same and then goes up almost immediately after the show when people have a little bit more time to really engage again. And then obviously TikTok is a market that's growing for business. And I think there's a huge amount of potential there. Facebook and X, I think, have their spaces, but it's not where we are right now.
Yeah. That's interesting, right? How that's shifted over time as well as you have these different editions in different parts of the world as well. At a recent, I think it was at IMEX in Frankfurt, we had a couple of students come in on day one. I think we were part of the Future Leader Forum, and they were on an expedition with their faculty member visiting the trade show for the first time. And I remember asking them, or actually asking them that question that we're always obsessed about, which is, show me an organization's event and tell me about their culture, right? And we asked the question, okay, now that you're starting off the trade show, could you, in your mind, look at this trade show through the lens of that question and tell us afterwards, what is the kind of organization that puts on this trade show? And come to us when you've experienced that and share your findings, right? And at first they look a little bit puzzled, and we give you some clues saying, is this a public company or is this a private company? Is this a, what type of organization? How many people work for the group that put this on? Like, give them a sense of business model and what does it take to put on something like this? And the answers you get at the end are always very interesting, right? Because through the young person's eyes, through the student that first discovers the wonderful world of events industry. I remember taking my son to IMEX Frankfurt a couple of years ago before he started his university and, opened up Hall 8 because he couldn't afford to travel across the world. I said, if you want to see the world, just come to Hall 8 at IMEX in Frankfurt, and you get to see the whole world through the lens of the events industry, right? Strikingly enough, quite a few of the students mentioned that this might actually be a family business and started asking around other people about this question. So it was an interesting way for them to look at, the actual value mechanism of a trade show like IMEX Frankfurt or IMEX Americas. Why do I say that? Is because I think the way you guys serve and interact with your audience, your recent clip I saw where, you go out to MGM in Las Vegas 3-4 weeks before the actual event, and you ask them from their stakeholder perspective, how are things going in the preparations, and try to look at it through their lens, right? You are their customer in a way, right? Yet you show an interest of their perspective of your event. If you hear this as an event owner, Carina, and business owner, how does that make you feel?
In terms of what the students said? Oh, great, actually. I'm surprised. I'm pleasantly surprised. And I'm interested in what it was that they experienced or felt that gave them that impression. But I'm delighted because that is what we try to do. Often people assume we're a very large company with a large team or globally distributed and are quite surprised that we're a relatively small team in a small town on the south coast of England and a family business. So the fact that those students, when they thought about it and looked at it through a different lens, came up with that is great. But I'm interested to know why.
I think that's such a lovely.
And I think this is an interesting point of discussion, right? Understanding an organization's business model or, just a simple events business model. How does it create value? Who are the stakeholders? What are they trying to achieve? What what's the frequency, the pattern, the rhythm of that event, and how it creates value is something that, each and every one of us should be super interested in, because at the end of the day, that's what we're about. The events industry would not be an industry if it weren't about value creation in the right way. Question about the cadence of IMEX. Doing one every 6 months. Have you ever considered changing that, or is that like the magic formula that's going to remain forever?
At the moment, it's the magic formula. So, I mean, it works really well for us with the structure we have, with the number of people that we have. Yeah. It means that everybody can take part in both shows. And when I say take part, I mean work towards both shows, which works really well for us as an organization, and it works well for our team because it's exciting to do that. And I think our clients really value that as well, because they're, for both shows, dealing with the same people, and then we can learn from one and then bring those learnings into the next, like in a continuous cycle. So at the moment, and for a long time, really, that's worked really well for us. So we're not super keen to change it at this point.
I mean, and there is no downtime. I think it's interesting as a business, I've been here a long time and we've gone from a much smaller team to a much bigger team, but it's not like now we have these breaks. We're constantly, as Carina said, once one show ends, we're either already halfway through planning for the next one, but we kind of jump right in. And I think as a member of your team, the cadence works very well.
Yeah.
It does become exciting again. It does, it's
constant.
Yeah. I think from an outside, when I wasn't working at IMEX, it was interesting to see coming. So my first show was Frankfurt, and then like what Carina said about looking at the learnings and then bringing that in for America. That's something I really quickly noticed what happened, and that was such a big thing to see, but also to know that the team cares so much to make sure the next show is better for those people coming back or the new people coming in. Those ideas that people give to us on the show floor actually coming to fruition for the next show was amazing, and just a testament, and shows what we can as a bigger team are capable of doing.
Last question I'm going to ask, and this might be, as I'm looking out the window here, I see this hill across the Swiss landscape, and it always makes me wonder on what's on the horizon of change, right? So maybe a more a question, for each of you. What's currently on your horizon of change if you look at the next horizon? And if we would have this conversation again next year or next year and a half, who knows, right? And reminded you of what you said, because we will probably do that, as you know, we do have a cadence in our conversations with the different podcasts hosts and guests. Would you like to share something that's currently on your horizon of change? Could be anything, business or personal, that you would feel like you would like to share with the people listening to this podcast who are, event owners, event designers, people in the events industry that have probably come across IMEX regularly. Is there something that you can share that's currently on your horizon of change? And I'll let the order and sequence go as it goes.
I mean, actually, it's an interesting time for us because we are currently updating our 2030 strategy. So that's not finalized yet, but I think we're moving into a period, another period, I should say, where technology is changing extremely rapidly. And so if I were to say anything for us as a business, what's really on that horizon is how we really embed AI into what we're doing to serve our customers better, to make sure that our clients, our exhibitors and our buyers, when they're coming to our events, can really achieve their objectives in an even more effective way than they can today. And I think that's what's coming down the line. That's a challenge, and that's also an opportunity for us. And so that's one of the areas when we look towards 2030 that we're really focusing on and will be focused on. And it'll be an iterative change, I'm sure, because we're all learning. But that's one of the key things, I think, for us.
Sounds like a big one. That's a 5-year window to 2030.
It's a big one.
I'll go personal because it's the exact opposite. I think I went personal last time as well. But I have 2 young boys, they still remain very young. And I think, for me, it's been a great challenge to figure out what like work-life integration, as Carina once calls it, can look like and will look like. I think I've been so lucky to find this kind of social media world that I love being in. And I'm just really excited to see where, as a business, we can grow into with our kind of channels around social media, and also how I can kind of balance that and my kids and finding that voice that I've been really lucky to have here. So yeah, I don't know what it's going to look like. Probably a lot more AI, to be honest, which, is helpful for me.
Organizes our small tasks.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Suze did both there because she talked about home life and social media, which is what I was going to say. No, just again, implementing everything that's happening, looking at where the world's going, looking at how we can develop and change and grow with that from a social media communications marketing point of view is going to be really interesting. Not only talking about the journey that people will have on site before they come on site, but integrating that across everything is going to be really exciting and interesting to see.
Absolutely. So a lot of work on that horizon of change. Some things we have no idea where they're going to end up or where they're growing towards, right? Next 3 weeks are kind of the ramp up to IMEX America, I suppose. Any last message that you want to make sure you share to the ones that are coming to that? Because we're going to publish this probably by the end of business today or tomorrow. As people listen to this and think, oh, should I go to IMEX America? I'm going to IMEX America. What's the last seed that you need to plant in their brain before they get on a plane or pull the trigger to go there?
Well, if they're not sure, they should definitely come. That's clearly the message.
Yeah.
If they're coming, really, I would just say, put aside an afternoon and just really go through everything that's on at the show. Go through that schedule, which we know is extensive. Go through the exhibitor list if they're on the buyer side. The attendee list, just spend a little bit of time, because spending a couple of hours doing that will really make sure that they can really craft their week, how they will get the most out of it. There's just such a massive variety of events, of experiences, of exhibitors, of attendees and buyers. So, to make the most of your time, just put in that planning work.
Absolutely.
Anything else that you guys have seen coming up?
We put out a first timers piece today that I think anybody who is new to IMEX America, new to IMEX itself, have a look at that on our LinkedIn and Instagram, because there's some helpful tips on there.
I think there's something for everyone at IMEX. Make sure you use the IMEX25 hashtag and share your IMEX experience, because we love to see what people are doing, how people are experiencing the show, and just showcase what your IMEX experience is to us. And we'll see you there.
I think that's a great way to do it. We'll make sure to include the links. If you haven't registered or never heard about IMEX, which we find hard to imagine, but that will be in the show notes. The link to what you just mentioned, Sophie, on the prep videos, right? It's almost like you're briefing before you get on the plane and do all the things you do at IMEX.
Practice your dance moves.
Oh, yeah, right. Practice the dance moves. I'm sure you have all your scripts ready and everything ready to go, as well as all of your improvisation that you're going to do on site.
Yeah.
We're looking forward to that. Follow the hashtag. Remind us one more time. Hashtag is IMEX.
IMEX25.
IMEX25. So easy to remember. We're going to follow it up close. We're also going to have an AI recap by Snapsite of our conversation here with all the key takeaways, the summary, as well as the idea cloud, so you can listen and read back those little memories. I want to thank Sophie Pink, Suzanne Mulligan, and Carina Bauer for hanging out with us for these, good 45 minutes, or 49 minutes, actually. And I wish you really good preparations to the upcoming IMEX America. And come and see us. The Event Design Collective will be on site. We're going to be doing sessions about climate change and event design and all sorts of fun stuff. And we can't wait to activate those things and see you all very soon.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
You've been hanging out backstage on Design to Change Designer Conversations. Thank you for tuning in, and don't forget
Love it.